Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and let's talk about the power level of commanders. So, of course, power level is a big discussion in the format. It always is, and people can probably guess why I'm making this video right now. We don't talk as nearly as much about the power level of commanders. Of course, when you're talking about the power level discussion, you're talking about what your deck's doing overall. You can very easily have a super janky or even just a vanilla commander that does nothing at all and still have a really powerful deck. Absolutely, you can. Obviously, if you're not building around your commander, putting tutors in there is going to make it more powerful. Putting, fast mana in there, all that kind of stuff will make it more powerful. But conversely, I think you can also have a commander in the command zone that really, no matter what you're doing in your deck, it's still going to be powerful because your commander is so powerful. So, of course, I'm talking about this now because Nadu Winged Wisdom just got banned. I thought it would be an interesting topic to talk about because, of course, banning a commander means it doesn't really matter what you're doing in your deck because your commander is so super powerful. And if you look at some of the commanders, the legendary creatures that are actually banned in the format, that certainly is the case. And with Nadu, again, the power level here, because it's banned, and I would imagine with a lot of those others as well, for me, this is a 10. How do you get it more powerful than this? I think most people would agree. Again, this is a commander that as soon as you see it, you're like, what were they thinking? That was most people's reaction. It's sort of like Jeweled Lotus, ironically. When you first saw Jeweled Lotus, you're like, what were they thinking with this card? This is ridiculous, right? So Nadu for me is a 10 as far as power level go. Again, we're going from 1 to 10 here. This is the same power level scale that you would use for the power level of your deck, but I'm applying it only to commanders. And I thought I would go through some commanders and give my ranking, my power level ranking on these commanders. Of course, you guys can give me your opinions in the comments as well. And as I say all the time, and I said the same thing about Nadu, Najeela is a commander that is so powerful that I don't want to see it really ever in a commander game, regardless of what your deck is doing. Again, this is what I'm talking about with power level of commander, where, yeah, okay, you're just doing warrior tribal, no big deal, right? But because Najeela is so powerful and can so easily just go off, even with just the first ability, she would be super powerful commander, but that 5-color ability just puts her completely over the top, in my opinion. This is a 10, again. And if we're playing casual commander, typically it's, you definitely don't want to get above an 8. So, going forward here, talking about these commanders, if I put anything at a 10 or a 9, then that means I don't think it should be played in casual commander at all. And if it's an 8, you're definitely pushing it, right? So for me, Najeela is a power level 10 commander. I don't ever want to see it in a casual game. Urza, Lord High Artificer, is also a 10 for me. This is another one. These are ones I bring up all the time. And Nadu would be joining that conversation if it wasn't banned, right? And again, I don't want to get too much into the bans, but okay, you banned Nadu, but Najeela and Urza were both commanders that as soon as they were printed, immediately became CEDH only commanders. So again, that was my thinking. Do I care that Nadu's banned? Absolutely, I don't. I don't play CEDH. But if you have commanders like Najeela and Urza, and again, Urza for me is at a power level 10, it doesn't matter what I'm doing in my, I'm doing a construct tribal or something. Doesn't matter. Your commander's still so insanely powerful, right? Just what your commander doing on its own is a power level 10, right? So for me, my thinking is we already had these commanders. We already had commanders that were power level 10 and CEDH only commanders. So that's my argument for why I didn't think it was necessary to ban Nadu. I certainly won't be missing it. And for everyone going, oh, the play pattern. If you ever played against an Urza deck, what are they doing? They're activating that bottom ability, shuffle your library, then exile top card of your library 1,000 times. They're taking like an hour-long turn or whatever they're doing. They're just doing that, right? They're just taking this super long turn until they win. So it's literally doing the same thing again. That's why I don't understand. But nevertheless, this is a power level 10 commander for me. Let's move on to Marin of Clan Naltoth, and this was my arch nemesis when I first started playing Commander. I played against it all the time. It was, I think, the second most popular commander in the entire format at the time. I saw it everywhere, and it is really, really powerful. This is the main reason why I have, one of my rules for deck building is you got to have graveyard hate. One of the 6 things every commander deck needs, right, is graveyard hate, because of commanders like this. Yeah, it's possible that you play in a game where nobody's playing a graveyard deck. That's okay. Bojuka Bog still taps for mana, right? But if you're playing against the Marin of Clan Neltoth deck and you don't have graveyard hate, you will lose. I really think in a casual commander game, again, we're not talking about CEDH here, so of course that is important when we're talking about the power level discussion. So the fact that I'm just talking about casual commander here means I do think this is a casual commander. But if you're playing against this commander, it's so powerful that if you don't have graveyard hate, I think you're just not going to stand a chance. So this is an 8 for me. This is about as powerful as it gets as far as a casual commander goes. So yeah, if you bring this to a casual game, I won't really have an issue with it, but I will definitely be on high alert. Next up, Muldroth of the Gravetide, very similar. Of course, this was the most popular commander in the entire format for a little while anyway. This is another commander that I didn't love playing against. This is another commander that you absolutely need graveyard hate or you will lose. This again is a power level 8 for me. I mean, it is 6 mana rather than 4 mana. I don't know if I'm comparing this to Marin. I would say, okay, well, it costs a little bit more. It's also 3 colors, so it's a little harder to get out. But again, when you're talking about the commander format, having a commander that's more colors makes it harder to cast, but it also opens you up to more possibilities because you're playing more colors, right? And obviously blue is a really powerful color in the format. So not really a drawback. The fact this is 3 colors, it allows you to do more from your graveyard, right? This is this is just a graveyard commander. Obviously with Marin, you're just dealing with creatures. Here you're dealing with every permanent type. So yeah, Marin has its upsides of why it might be better as a graveyard commander, but this obviously has its upsides as well. This also is a power level 8 for me. So again, playing in a casual game, sure, no problem, but I'm definitely going to be watching out for you. Korvold, Fey Cursed King. This is an interesting one. And again, this is another funny one where when it first came out, nobody was losing their minds over this. For anyone who remembers when this card came out, this was not like Nadu, where everyone was like, what were they thinking with this? And in fact, even I was looking at this going, hey, this would be a great food commander, because of course we didn't have a food commander at the time. The food mechanic was a fairly new thing, and I thought this would be a funny, I was thinking food, treasure, and clues. I ended up throwing a deck together that was doing all 3, because again, we didn't have any commanders that did that at the time, and I thought this was a great one because you are sacrificing permanents. And yeah, didn't take me long play testing that deck before I realized how insanely powerful it is to draw a card and put a counter on your commander every time you sack a permanent. And then, you're like, oh, I sacked my Evolving Wilds and that triggers my commander. And very quickly you learn that sacrificing a permanent is almost like breathing. And you do it so frequently, just incidentally in any commander deck, that getting a card draw every time off of that is insane. And on top of that, I'm putting a counter on my commander, and I don't even really need to worry about a win con because my win con becomes my commander just getting bigger and flying in and killing my opponents, right? So I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this one, but this really is. And a lot of people have said that there are commanders that are sort of in that limbo where they're not a CEDH commander, but they're also, they don't want to really see them in a casual game. And there certainly is commanders that fall into that category, but this is a commander that is played in CEDH. So for me, this is a power level 9. It's not the worst of the worst, but this for me is a power level 9. And I don't think I would really like to see it in a casual game, regardless. So even if you're doing that janky food themed deck, it's still insanely powerful, right? That's what I'm talking about here. All right, Thrasios, Triton Hero. And this is another one that a lot of people, it's funny. This is a commander that, again, when it first came out, nobody was losing their mind over. But then once they saw it in action, it's like, oh, that guy's insane. It's crazy. This for me, though, is, I have no problem with this. Yeah, you can get into situations with the Seedborn Muse and all of this. And I know this is a commander that's played in CEDH a lot. And it is played in CEDH a lot. But it's played in CEDH a lot for, first of all, the colors. Sometimes people just use partner commanders because they want the colors. It's also used it's just card advantage, right? And yeah, you can get into the, Seedborn Muse and all these other situations. If you happen to produce infinite mana, obviously you can draw your whole deck. There are those possibilities, but on its own, again, that's what I'm talking about, power level on their own. Not, oh, I got this combo in my deck. No. On its own, on its face, Thrasios it's just okay. It's a partner. That definitely adds to the power level because you can add other colors and other, whatever that other partner commander is doing. But 4 mana, scry 1, and then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, otherwise draw a card. That's just okay. So Yeah, I have no problem seeing this in a casual game. As I say all the time, depends on what your deck is doing. But if I'm just looking at the commander, this is a 6 for me. I know people are going to think that's insane, but again, other than the combo potential and the other things that you're going to add in to help your commander's ability, 4 mana scry 1 then draw card is just okay, right? Arcades, the strategist, is another one I threw in here that I thought would be an interesting to evaluate. So we're doing walls, and this one I wanted to throw in here in particular because another thing is, and I guess Giada would be similar here because if it's a tribal commander. One of the things about commanders like this is, yeah, that's a really powerful ability, and obviously that's how you're going to build the deck. I suppose you could build an elf deck or a merfolk deck with Arcades just to purposely make it bad, I guess, but that's kind of a silly scenario. You're of course going to put creatures with defender in here. Having all your creatures enter the battlefield and draw you a card obviously is fantastic. And then, turning any downside into upside is fantastic as well, especially with walls where you can get that huge butt for a low mana value, which essentially becomes power. So really powerful commander with what you're doing. However, the significant part here and why I wanted to talk about this one in particular is because this is one of those commanders that when you remove it, it does almost nothing. Your deck now becomes bad. So that for me brings the power level down, right? Someone has a whole bunch of walls in play. They're about to swing in and kill me. All I have to do is remove their commander and now they can't attack. Right? Remove their commander and all of a sudden they skip their combat step essentially, right? And if you remove their commander a couple of times, things get really difficult, right? This is one of those commanders that, yeah, when your commander is out and your deck is firing on all cylinders is great. But if you knock this guy's, this is very much a monolith commander, right? So that brings the power level down for me. Yeah, it's great when it's on the battlefield, but as soon as I remove it a couple times, your deck doesn't do a whole lot. And I know, again, that goes with a lot of the commanders where, yeah, your deck doesn't do much when they're on the battlefield. But a lot of the commanders I've already talked about are, you can just really, all you need is one good turn, right? Think about Korvald and Nadu and Gila and a lot of these commanders, Urza that I talked about. All I need is put my commander down and I need just need one good turn and I can have so much accomplished. Here, I think that one good turn wouldn't do a whole lot. You draw a couple cards and you'd get in for some damage. And then if I removed your commander, you might start tripping up a little bit with your deck. So this for me is a 6. It's definitely, it's a good commander, clearly, but it's definitely got some drawbacks, and it's definitely not one that I would be particularly scared of. Anamar, Soul of the Elements, and this one, again, I grabbed in particular. Obviously, it's a popular commander. The potential here is huge, and again, it's really difficult to not build a good deck here. Again, that's how you know you got a powerful commander is you'd have to go out of your way to not make a powerful deck with this. And of course, even the people, one of the first things that people started doing with Anamar is the Anamorph decks. Hey, you can cast your morph guys for free. And I mean, okay, that's insanely good, right? That even doing that sort of janky theme is, oh wait, I can just cast all my morph creatures once I get a couple counters on my commander for free. That's really good. I know people will say, oh, what if it gets removed, right? I don't want to get too much into the removal scenario, but I have my Anamar. I can really go, just one turn, I can completely go off, right? I can just cast, I got a couple counters on my commander, morph, right? Or cast an Eldrazi for free, right? All I need is one good turn to really go nuts with an Anamar deck. And of course, it's also got the protection from white and black, which of course, white and black are the two best removal colors in the format, and obviously the best spot removal. So all that's not going to work if you're up against a white-black deck. They basically, I mean, I've had that happen to me where I'm just like, I might as well pack it in. What are you going to do, right? You can cast the board white, but it's certainly going to make your life so much harder. Their commander's essentially unblockable, so that having the protection in white from 2 colors on there is super good. That makes this guy a lot more powerful. I'm going to give this one a 7, I think, but it's really close to being an 8 for me. Really close. Gishath, Sun's Avatar. This was another one that was sort of, I had to put up with this a lot for a while. When this first came out, I saw it in every damn game, and it was a menace. And yeah, it cost 8 mana, but so what? You're in green. Nobody has a problem getting their Gishaths out. And again, this is another one that, we're not talking about the deck, we're talking about the commander. And what makes this guy so incredibly good is that all of his abilities And this is when they started doing that. They started doing every commander with an attack ability already has haste on it, so you don't have to wait. Or every commander with a deal damage trigger has trample or menace, so they started making it easier and easier and easier for you. So you didn't have to put a Sword of Vengeance on your commander. You could just go nuts right away, right? If Gishath didn't have haste, that would definitely bring it down a lot, because you'd have to put haste enablers in your deck or wait a whole nother turn. Right? The fact that it is haste, and again, everyone's played against this commander. It's like, okay, they have their commander come out, attack right away, I path it. Okay. I mean, you just gave them a land, but they don't have to wait long before they have it come down again and then attack with it again. And ramp, do it again. Like, you don't slow them down much by killing their commander. This is one of those commanders that is very much like that. And I mean, on top of the fact that you're taking a considerable amount of damage as well, right? This again is 7 for me. Man, yeah, easily a 7. We're just doing Dinosaur Tribal, right? Every Gishath deck is essentially the same. But even just doing that, it's really hard for this not to be a powerhouse in any given casual commander game, right? Kaleo the Vast is another interesting one, and this is one that I think a lot of people would be divided on. I think a lot of people, man, yeah, I've definitely met people that didn't even want to see this in a casual game, but this is a situation of, just on its face, right? Yeah, there is the Master of Cruelties scenario where you can knock out one player, sure. Yeah, that's okay. But again, here's a commander that, before they started doing that, funny enough, has an attack trigger but doesn't have haste. So yeah, there is the dream scenario of, I have a Lightning Greaves in play, I cast my commander, I immediately equip it, my opponents can't target it. I mean, they can target it in response to the equip, obviously, but I can attack with it right away, throw the Master Cruelties out, and kill someone instantly. Sure. That's sort of the Magic Christmas Land thing a little bit though, right? That's not going to be happening a whole ton. This is a commander that needs to attack, doesn't have haste, does have evasion. It's certainly not scary. Yeah, you're going to be putting big, scary stuff into play, sure. But again, your deck's going to slow down an absolute ton as soon as someone kills your commander. Yeah, you'll have a couple of big, scary creatures. I mean, it's definitely good. There's a reason why it's so popular, but this again is a 7 for me. I definitely, and I would say barely a 7. I wouldn't go above 7 with this one for sure. Edgar Marov is, I've told the story for all the newer commander players out there. This came out in C17 and people were losing their minds over it. Again, the Eminence ability was, it was really tough to evaluate when you first saw it, because you're like, okay, how good is that? We did have commanders that did stuff from the command zone before, but it was hard to gauge how good the Eminence ability would be before you started seeing it. And of course, Edgar Marov probably has the best Eminence ability of all time, I think. And people realized really quickly that this guy was it was like Krenko, right? It was just cranking him out. And it was maybe the best aggro deck ever. You could debate. It is still, I don't know. It definitely was a terror for a while. People actually were calling for it to get banned. You could just really fill the board up and then cast your commander and start piling the counters on it. It is because of the Eminence ability alone. The fact that you don't even have to cast your commander. I've seen quite a few Edgar Marov decks that never cast their commander and they still do just fine. But again, for me, this is my opinion. I play lots of board wipes, so I usually didn't have that much of an issue. I don't think I've ever lost to an Edgar Marov deck. This is a 7 for me. Again, it's a fantastic aggro commander, but again, aggro is just okay in the commander format. It's not a super scary strategy to be playing against in any commander game, I don't think, right? I would rather see this than a Gishath. That's how I look at it. A guy throwing out 1/1 vampire tokens, not super scary. To me, seeing a bunch of giant dinosaurs in play is much worse. That's how I look at it. And, here we go again. Krenko Mob Boss, very similar. Again, probably the two best aggro commanders in the format are Edgar Marov and Krenko. This, again, is going to be probably a 7 for me. And it's maybe even worse. This is more powerful than Edgar Marov as far as the explosive potential here, certainly. However, you're in mono red, and one advantage that Edgar Marov has, and when I'm talking about power level, I got to include the colors here. The fact that your commander is more or less colors is going to affect the power level because, of course, it's going to allow you to play certain things in your deck. So that certainly plays into this ranking for me. But the fact that this is mono red brings it down because you don't have any way to protect your team. A board wipe is such a massive blowout for you. And again, another commander that I was never really that concerned about. It's super explosive, maybe one of the most explosive commanders ever. More explosive than Edgar Marov even, but one board wipe and now you got to rebuild your whole board, right? This is another commander that, of course, you're going to do Goblin Tribal here. I don't know. There's no other way to build this deck. So I'm talking about the power level of commander here, but of course we know what this deck is going to be doing. Even if you're playing the jankiest goblins ever printed, this is still going to be a really powerful commander. The Goblin Tribal stuff is maybe some of the best tribal support in the history of the game. So it's really, really hard not to build a powerful deck with this commander. I know a lot of people would call this probably an 8, but for me, it's just a 7. I think 7 is fair here. Here's where I get the most pushback, without a doubt, Miram Sentinel Worm. And I know that the removal argument is not always a great one, right? Dies to removal is not a great one. And of course, having Ward 2 makes it even more difficult, but I don't know. I've played against this commander a couple of times. I remember hearing all the outcry about this commander. Again, this is, you know, as far as I'm shocked how popular it is, this is number one. It'll never be dethroned for how shocking I am that this commander is so popular. It's like a 4th in the entire format or 5th in the entire format or something. It's nuts. Giada would be another one. Those are the two biggest is Miram and Giada, as I just talked about in my popular commanders video. Listen, I don't want to get too much into why is this popular. I know the potential is here, but as far as just what this commander is doing, it is 6 mana. And it's, you know, you're going to have to wait a while before you really start going off. For me, it's just kind of slow. I don't know. I'm looking at this commander and I'm thinking Gishath in the command zone is going to be more scarier than this is. That's just the way I look at it. It's definitely good. I will give it a 7. Okay, reluctantly, I will give it a 7. I could definitely give it a 6, but I will give it a 7. And that's about as far as I'm going to go. Yuriko Tiger's Shadow. So again, we're back to the commanders that as soon as they were print again, how many of you guys, and I am trying to make a point with this video a little bit, how many of you guys want to see this in a casual commander game? I sure don't. Right? This commander is so powerful that you don't even need to put any other ninjas in the deck. That's the funny thing about this commander. Does it matter if someone shows up to a casual game and you have Yuriko in the command zone? Does it matter what they're doing in their deck? They don't even need any other ninjas in the deck. Just the commander alone, right? That's sort of the point I'm trying to make with this video. And again, this is another commander that for me is CEDH only. It's not quite as powerful. Again, it's not an Agila or an Urza or a Nadu for me, but it is like a Korvald for me where I don't want to see it in a casual game. This is a power level 9 for me. I mean, if you brought this to a casual game, I might fare okay. But the fact that your commander has this incredible win con ability stapled on it, the fact that the commander ninjutsu is cheating commander attacks, it is super, super powerful. Power level 9 here, I think, is fair. All right, we're going to end off with, of course, the most popular commander in the format, Attracts a Praetor's Voice. And this is another interesting one. Again, getting back to the popular commanders argument, what makes this popular? Is it powerful? I don't think it's really powerful. It certainly is casual. Could you even make a CEDH deck with this commander? Again, it would probably be a deck that is just using the colors and you don't even care about your commander so much. So it's certainly a casual commander. So for that reason, it's going to be 8 or below. I don't think it's an 8. Again, if I'm looking at the commanders here that I fear, almost every single one I talked about is above this. The fact that it has flying, vigilance, death touch, and lifelink is good. Just proliferating every end step, of course, is good. That's all very good. But it's not like you're not blowing me away. It's nothing super scary. If I see an Atraxa in the command zone, and of course, this is a commander where certainly you could be doing a ton of different things. The big ones, the most scary ones, are Infect. I think for most people, the scary one here is Infect, because your opponent can just give you a couple of poison counters and then just proliferate you to death, right? But how many turns is that going to take? Again, your commander only proliferates once per turn. I know you can put more effects in there, but now we got to build around all that kind of stuff, right? There is a lot of work that has to be put in here. Your opponent's not going to be killing you super easy with Infect. It's still going to have to put in some work, and they're going to have to put in more work to kill the other opponents as well. So this is not a commander that I look at in the command zone and fear as far as, oh no, if they're playing Infect. For me, this is, if they're playing Super Friends, I hate Super Friends. So if I'm playing against a Attracts a Super Friends deck, that's going to be, I'm not going to fear it. I'm going to be annoyed by it. I know they're going to be casting lots of board wipes and killing all my creatures all the time. I just don't like planeswalkers in general. So for me, that's the thing that I'm going to fear most is, oh, they're playing Super Friends, and I just don't like Super Friends. But that's not a power level thing, although planeswalkers do tend to be really powerful. It's more of an annoyance thing on my part. So this is a 6 for me. This is, I think 6 is fair here. Do people fear this commander? I don't fear it. I know because it's a really popular commander. Obviously, everyone's familiar with it. It's the most popular commander. And because people are doing things like Infect. But do you guys really fear Infect? Like, if you think about the strategy of Infect in the commander format, what power level is that? It certainly is casual. You know, again, if I was just to rank Infect as a strategy as far as power level go, I'd probably give it a 6. So what other strategy is going to make Atrax a more powerful feared commander? I think 6 is fair. All right, there you go. There is the power level rankings that I gave to some of the most popular commanders in the format. Agree or disagree? You guys let me know in the comments below what you think. What power level would you, again, regardless of what these commanders might be doing, although some of them, the build around is so obvious, you really can't do anything else. Again, especially the tribal commanders, of course, you're going to be doing that. But even if I'm playing an Edgar Markov deck and putting in the jankiest run-of-the-mill bargain bin vampires in there, I'm still going to be playing a powerful commander. Cranko, no matter what goblins I put in there, I'm going to be playing a really powerful commander. That's why I gave them the rankings I gave them. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. That's it for today, and thanks for tuning in.